All right, folks, we're going to get started in just a few minutes. If you could take your seats. All right. We've got a great session planned here for the Keynote lunch. I think many of you were here in the room for the kickoff this morning at 9. But for those of you who weren't, my name is Jason Menzo. I'm the new Chief Operating Officer here at the Foundation Fighting Blindness. I've been here for about 3 months, and so it's coming fast and furious in terms of trying to learn all the science and all the wonderful things that are happening at the foundation with regards to the research. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a real pleasure for me to get to meet so many wonderful people in our community, both on staff, but most importantly, all of our volunteers and all the folks that work closely with us across the country. So thank you very much for all of you for giving me such a warm welcome starting here over the last couple months. I'd also like to remind folks that we have this great thing that we're doing here for Visions 2018, where we're streaming sessions live online. The 9 o'clock a.m. session had several hundred people watching from Facebook and on the I Am the Cure blog from our website, and there was a lot of positive feedback. One of the things that's awesome about that is that it takes this content that we're able to bring to you here in the room and make it accessible to those that couldn't make it and those back home. So that's awesome. So everyone who's watching online, hello. Probably my wife and kids, hello. How are you guys? Thanks. Yeah. I don't know, I got a glimpse of myself on the screen a few minutes ago, and I disagree with you, but that's all right. So the other thing that we're doing is we're trying to be social and, again, trying to engage this community across the country. And so there is a conversation that's happening right now on Twitter and on Facebook, and if you want to participate anytime over the weekend, just use the hashtag VISIONS2018. And again, there's a lot of chatter happening there as well. So terrific. What have you thought of the conference so far? So just pretty good? Pretty good? A lot of good content so far? Very good. I was amazed this morning. Dr. Ben Yerxa, who's our CEO, he asked the question, how many folks are new to the conference? And I was astounded that probably 3/4 of the folks who are here are first-time attendees. And so that's awesome. That's awesome. What it means to me is that we're making good progress in terms of engaging people and widening, as we say, widening the tent. Bringing more people into the tent and engagement. So that's awesome. So we've got a jam-packed keynote presentation here after lunch. There's just a couple highlights I wanted to share with you in terms of some activities that we're doing at the foundation, some really new and exciting things that you'll see over the coming months. First and foremost, I'm really proud to announce that we are updating and relaunching our website later this year in the fall. And so we are constructing it from the ground up. We're going to have a brand new website with new resources, new education, hopefully a lot of great things that for yourselves and within the community that you'll be able to enjoy with our website. And importantly, probably one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we're building best-in-class accessibility into the website from day one. It's into the DNA of the website. We are working with one of the leading accessibility architects in the world to help design this website from scratch. And so I'm very proud of the effort that the team is making in that regard. And I ask you that if at any point in time there's anything that we could do to improve either the website or really anything regarding the foundation, to please reach out to us, reach out to your local folks or really anyone at the foundation, because we are all ears and wanting to be as forward-thinking as we can at taking your feedback. To that end, we actually are going to be launching a survey in the next couple weeks to everyone who's in attendance here at Visions, with the intent to learn from you what additional resources you'd like to see us bring to you, either in the form of the website, or if you'd like to share your story that we could share with the community either via social media or on our website. So just be aware that we're going to launch that survey here very soon, and hopefully you'll have a lot of participation. So, all right. So we have a very, very jam-packed keynote luncheon. Obviously, the salads are out. We'll be eating in just a few minutes. Our luncheon is going to include 2 award presentations and a keynote speaker, Mr. Jim Platzer, who I'm very excited to have here with us today. Got to know Jim a little bit the other night. We come from the same great state of Michigan. We come from Metro Detroit, and he's very involved in Leader Dogs for the Blind, which is based in Rochester, Michigan, which is where I grew up. So I thought that was pretty cool. But Really, before we start lunch, the last thing I want to do is I want to thank our sponsors. We've got a lot of great organizations that are working with us. These companies are very enthusiastic and very proactive at providing a lot of resources for us here at the foundation. And they participate in our vision walks. They provide speakers for our local educational seminars. They support events like this weekend, and I want to highlight and thank a couple of our key sponsors, specifically those that are involved here this weekend. So first of all, when you checked in or at any point in time over the weekend, you may have interacted or will interact with our platinum sponsor, and that's IRA. And so IRA is an awesome company based here in La Jolla. IRA is an easy-to-use service that provides instant access to visual information at the touch of a button through a combination of augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and human agents, so that people who are blind and have low vision can use the service to have an experience unlike any that they've had before. So that's their goal. It's really a technology company. What's amazing in terms of their partnering with us is that they are offering everyone who's in attendance free use of their service all weekend. It's about $100,000 worth of value that they're gifting us for this weekend. So if you aren't, so thank you. If you haven't learned about it yet or haven't downloaded the app or learned how to take advantage of it, they've got folks all over the place. Ask any of the Foundation Fighting Blindness folks and we'll be able to connect you. We also are very excited that Suman Kanyagati, who's the CEO of IRA, is going to be addressing the team here today or tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So at the exhibit hall at 8 a.m., grab your food, come down, and he's going to give a presentation overviewing IRA and also a demonstration of how the system works. So very excited about partnering with IRA. Thank you very much for their support of this weekend. We also would like to thank our gold sponsor, Shire. Shire Pharmaceuticals is the underwriter of our accessibility for the rest of the weekend. So things like enhanced lighting, sign language interpreters, the closed captioning, listening devices are being provided by Shire. And again, they're our gold sponsor. They're a champion for people all over the world with rare disease, and they partner with Foundation Fighting Blindness to do the same. We would also like to thank our gold sponsor, Spark Therapeutics, who we heard from earlier this morning at 9 a.m. Spark, as you all know, is the developer of Luxturna, which is the first gene therapy for retinal disease, but really any inherited disease. And so thank you to both of our gold sponsors, Shire and Spark. And then finally, we'd like to thank our silver partner, which is Mira GTX. Mira GTX is a vertically integrated clinical stage gene therapy company with 4 ongoing clinical programs and a broad pipeline of preclinical and research stage programs. So we heard this morning there are 30 clinical stage programs in this space. Amazingly, Mira GTX has 4 gene therapies just within that one organization. So thank you very much to Mira GTX. And then lastly, I want to recognize our bronze partners. They include gene therapy developer AGTC, which is obviously a gene therapy company, retinal prosthesis provider, which is Second Sight, and then an optimized ocular therapeutics developer, which is Vitrissa. So thank you again to all of our sponsors, all of our partners. Really couldn't do this weekend without you. All right. So we're going to have lunch, and then we'll start the program in just a little bit after lunch. Good. All right, folks. We're going to go ahead and get started back up. Please feel free to continue to eat while we're presenting the keynote here this afternoon. But the exhibit hall does open in just a little while, and so we want to make sure we stay on time and give everyone an opportunity to not only participate in the technology showcase that's going to happen this afternoon, but also to get to see all of our great exhibitors who are here with some wonderful technology and education. So it is now my esteemed pleasure to introduce Mr. David Brint to the stage. David is our chairman of the board. He has been for the last 2 years, but actually has been an incredibly passionate and active member of the Foundation Fighting Blindness community for more than 2 decades. I've just been getting to know him the last couple months. He's awesome. I really appreciate getting to work with him. He's also, chairman of the board, so right, you gotta keep that in mind when you're introducing him. But please help me welcome David Brint.
Jason, you're going to go far. Well, welcome to San Diego. So, before we start, I'm curious, by show of hands, how many of you came from east of the Mississippi? Wow, that's awesome. I'm east of the Mississippi too. I'm from Chicago, so yeah, that had to be David Alexander saying that. I do want to take a moment to thank the Foundation's wonderful staff for putting this together, and before she runs out, Michelle DiVincenzo, are you in the back there? There you are. And she's a Chicagoan, right? So, you guys came from, half of you look like you came from east of the Mississippi, and that's obviously a long travel, and I'm often reminded about the journey that we were all on together. Now, I have a son that is blind from birth. He's 21, so my wife and I have, incidentally, I forgot. Betsy's watching at home. Hi, Bets. Hi, honey. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Phew. That would have been a big problem. So the journey that we're all on, we are all, I think everyone here has their own journey of how they have dealt with visual impairment and losing vision or having a family member that's lost vision. That's what binds us. That's what makes us a family of people that share a common experience, and that's why you're all here. And we're here to try to lead that effort, to make sure that you have a place to get information, to get technologies that will help your daily living skills, and hopefully to cure your diseases. And I'm mindful of how long journeys can be, because we were having a discussion earlier with a couple of our trustees, and somebody said, and rightfully so, I've heard the cures are in sight for so long that, I really appreciate what you're saying, but, don't give me that anymore. And they likened it to a train trip from Los Angeles to New York, and said, maybe we're at Omaha now. And they're not totally wrong, except the difference is that the train didn't have a good GPS for the first 45 years that we were operating. It went to Seattle and Phoenix and then back to San Francisco and up to Bismarck and then down to New Orleans and then over to Omaha. And now I think we have made the guide wires on the side of the train a little more focused to go due east. And we are getting to the point now where we are finding treatments and cures. And we found one. We had one big success. And the foundation exists for the purpose of finding these treatments and cures. And what we do, and I really want you to make sure that people understand this, is that our job is to make sure that we are finding the best researchers in the world, that we're funding them, that we're funding them based on milestones of accomplishment so that we know that they're progressing, to make sure that what they discover is secure, that their intellectual property is secure so that they can take their discoveries out to clinic, and then to make sure that we find and the money to bring their ideas to clinic to help cure retinal disease. And that is what we do. We do that like no one else in the world, and we have been doing it for quite a long time. But now especially with so many ideas, so many opportunities to do things, we have a larger charge because it will take hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to do the clinical trials necessary to get these treatments and cures to all of you. And that's what we're doing. We have been educating, teaching biotech, pharma, venture capital for the last 10 years. They are interested, they are putting lots of money in the field, and our job is to make sure that we can feed that pipeline and take away their risks. And that's what we're doing, and that's what you're seeing. That's why there's 30 clinical trials going on. That's why you see our corporate sponsors here, and there are many more of them. And it's important that we continue to do that. But, you know, the message that I have for all of you is that in being a family, in sharing our common journeys, it's not just about what the foundation is doing. You're an active part of the foundation, if you want to be, and we need you to be. We need you to get involved in your local chapters. We need you to raise money. We need you to give money. We need you to give your intellectual intelligence to us about things that we can do better. And so I challenge you, I encourage you to get involved in any way. I mean, I tell this story that still happens to today. There's a family, the Amadeo family in New Jersey, whose the grandmother, Claudia, as a seamstress, and she keeps a little jar on her counter, and every month for, 15 or 18 years, we get a $20 check every month. And we send her information, and all the people that contribute, that money to them, she tells them what's going on, and she gets the message out to them, and we find people sending us checks with their name, in honor of the Amadeo family. And if that's what you can do, do it. If you can talk to somebody that can help the foundation and introduce us, introduce us. Take hold of your own lives and get involved with what we do, because we really need you. We need you more than you know, because in the next 20 years, that train is going to go from Omaha to New York, and we're going to take it off the tracks for good. And when that happens, you'll all be able to say that we found the cure together, we worked together, and we accomplished a mission. And I'm certain that that's going to happen. I hope you have a great time over the next couple of days. Enjoy yourselves, talk to the researchers, make friends, share stories, have a little bit to drink. You only have to go upstairs. You can just go to the bar and just scamper upstairs. If you need help getting upstairs, let me know. I'll take you up. Not a problem. And before I finish, I do have to make one shout out as we talk about journeys. So I don't know, is Suman here? Myra? No. Okay, no, Sam. So my son is working a job, and he goes on the train every day from the train station to his work, and he uses the Ira glasses and his cane. And I followed him the first day, and just to make sure that he didn't have any problems. And as a parent, and I don't know how many of you are parents of kids that are visually impaired, but as a parent, that was the most stressful 20 minutes, watching that kid successfully go the 12 or 15 blocks from the train station to his job. But he had technology, he had support, there were people along the way who helped him across the streets, and it reminded me that we are all in this together. This journey that we are in together, we will help each other, we will get through it, and in short order, we will have more successes to talk about. So thank you all very much. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Rose. We call him Uncle Steve, and for a lot of different reasons. He's been guarding our science team for, I think, it says 14 years here, but I think it's 12. 14? I thought we only agreed that you'd work for 12. All right. He's presenting the Board of Directors Award for the Outstanding Achievement by a Director here. And here he is, Uncle Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Uncle Steve, my kids call me Papa Bear. Others just call me Meshuggah, and that's Yiddish for crazy, but whatever. I'll respond to anything, as the saying goes. Call me anything you want, just don't call me late to dinner. I'm always excited to come to Visions and present promising research that is really making a difference in our field. I really enjoy meeting all of you, speaking with you, hearing your stories. I also learn a lot from the researchers. I gain great insights from individuals and families, and like you, who are courageous enough to let us know what's happening in your lives and to support us as we take the science forward. I have no doubt that if you've been following the science, you've heard of regenerative medicine. During some of the sessions here, it's called stem cells, but also in the press, it's called regenerative medicine. And that really is a tremendous area that the foundation is very proud to be supporting and moving forward. Talking about making new photoreceptors, new retina, and transplanting it. The holy grail, obviously, is to rebuild the retina. And there are some challenges, namely ensuring that the new cells actually integrate into the retina of the individual who's receiving it. We also need to ensure that the transplanted cells survive, and that's not a small issue. I was in transplant for over 15 years in solid organ and bone marrow transplant. I was honored enough to do the clinical trials that supported registration and use of immunosuppressive drugs in solid organ and bone marrow. And some of that, actually, the drug that I worked on is now being used in cellular transplant in the eye. So I have a bit of a history there. But imagine if there was a way for you to regenerate your cells, your retina itself. Think about it. That is to grow your own new retina. That's exactly what the recipient of our Board of Directors Award has found a way to do. By tweaking the gene in retinal cells called Mueller glial cells, part of the retina, structural cells that don't normally provide vision, that can coax those Mueller glial cells into becoming photoreceptors. By using this approach in restoring vision, researchers may be able to circumvent the need of transplantation. We're excited by the progress in this awardee's work and in making and moving, growing your own retina back. As some people have said, releasing your inner salamander, because salamanders regenerate their own retina. So anyway, the recipient of this year's prestigious Board of Directors Award for Outstanding Research Achievement and an FFB-funded professor of biological structure, and he's smiling over there, at the University of Washington. He received his Bachelor of Science. It's from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He went on to postdoctoral studies at Princeton, yes, Gordon, right down the road from you, at that prestigious institute. And he's received several awards for his work, including the Alberta Heritage Foundation for Medical Research and the Sloan Scholar Awards. Without further ado, please allow me and join me in awarding this and taking care of Dr. Thomas Ray, University of Washington, for his pioneering work.
That was a surprise. You want me to say a few words?
Yeah, you'll say a few words. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve, and thanks to the board. This is really an honor. I'm thrilled and surprised. They didn't tell me that this was going to happen, so I learned when you learned. You know, I think we in my research, what I've learned more than anything is that it takes a lot of years and a lot of persistence, and the journey is long, but you eventually find things about the biology. It slowly pulls back the curtain and really, reveals some of the mysteries. And what you guys are going through in terms of your journeys, I think us scientists are on a parallel journey in a way. And as you help us to pull back that curtain on the mysteries that will help you get better. And so I think we sort of have a bit of a codependency here, and I've been thrilled to be part of this organization for all these years, and really I hope that we'll get that curtain back far enough to really release that inner salamander sooner than later. Thank you.
Now, to present the Foundation Fighting Blindness's Builder of Sight Award, I would like to welcome the Foundation Fighting Blindness trustee, Mindy Kaplan, and FFB Board of Director, Eddie Rusnow. No. There you go. Oop, we got you, and you're straight ahead. That's your
Gotcha. Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. It is with great pride and love of my parents that I am honored to present the Ben and Beverly Berman Builder of Sight Award. It's rather apropos that the award should be named so. My father was a real estate developer who transitioned 47 years ago to lay the groundwork for a nonprofit organization with a group of grassroots community leaders. These leaders volunteered their time, talent, energy, passion, commitment, and conviction to eradicate blindness. Without them, we would not be here today. So I wish to take a moment to acknowledge these individuals. Ben and Beverly Berman, Shoshana and Jerome Carden, Sally Kushner, Daniel Friedman, David Gomroff, Luli and Gordon Gunn, and Alexander Yankelov. Because of these individuals, they laid the groundwork and established the mission statement. With them, a framework began to be built, consisting of researchers and institutions that came on board to embrace their hope and dream for the future. But with this framework, you need to build around it to secure it and make sure of endurance. With that, I commend staff and volunteers, past and present, who represent each brick laid. For without these volunteers, the very framework of the researchers would be weak and would not be able to continue with their work. So, on behalf of my family, the Bermans, and the initial grassroots group, I commend all of you here today, for without you and your hard work, passion, and commitment, we would not be able to be here today and listen to all the research that's been going on. So thank you. So with that said, I am proud and honored to present the Ben and Beverly Berman Builder of Site Award to this year's recipient, who in his own style of leadership has helped further the cause that we're all here for, and hopefully soon we'll be able to go out of business. So I would like to turn it over to last year's recipient, Eddie Russ now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mindy. I am privileged to join you, the daughter of one of our founders, as you just heard, in presenting the Builder of Site Award. Mindy and her family, the Bermans and the Kaplans, are a great example of the ingenuity and passion that has made FFB such an enduring and successful organization. I am also honored this year to present this award because it is for a dear friend of mine. When I started my involvement with FFB, I was considered part of the young crowd, and boy, has time flown by. Now that I've got gray hair and a receding hairline, I'm not part of that crowd anymore. But one of the first ways that I decided to get involved with the organization was by attending an event that we would do annually on the eve of the NHL playoffs, which was known as the Fighting Blindness League. And after a few years of attending this event with customers, I decided to invite one of my close friends. Little did I know that this invitation would eventually lead this person to become what we describe in FFB as one of our angels. He's a person who does not have a direct personal reason to be involved within our organization. But because of his selfless involvement, over the years he has truly built up a reputation of being one of our great fundraisers and one of our true angels. He has meant a great deal to my family and to so many people in this room. As he got involved with the organization through the Fighting Blindness League by inviting some clients, he also participated and co-chaired with me for over 10 years the Taste for Sight that we held in New Jersey. And just this past year, he was involved in chairing the 2018 Fashion Ball in New York City, which amazingly raised more than $1 million. He procured many sponsors, recruited one of the honorees, and obtained several auction items. And he supports numerous other activities and events throughout the Northeast, including the Vision Walk. So, of course, I am talking about Steve Alper. Steve has been involved with FFB since 2000, and he was elected a national trustee in 2004 and has served on the board since 2012. In whatever capacity that he serves this organization, he is always a passionate ambassador and advocate. When he's not busy helping FFB, Steve is a managing director of investments with Stifel and has 3 decades of experience working with individuals, families, and their enterprises. I couldn't be more proud to be standing here before you to present this prestigious award to one of my best friends, Steve Alper. Steve.
Where is he? So somebody said before that they weren't prepared with any remarks whatsoever. Well, now I'm really that person. So one thing that Eddie does know is that I'm not big for showmanship. I don't like the recognition. I'd rather be behind the scenes just doing whatever I can do to help out. So I'm somewhat flattered, impressed, embarrassed, but more importantly, I'm really privileged and honored. This organization has meant a great deal to me, more than you know. And the one thing that I'll say is that as much as I could give back, as much as I could do, I know that this organization has made me a better person today than I was 20 years ago. So I thank each and every one of you in this room for helping me become the person that I am today. Thank you for this award, and thank you for everything.
I had to keep it from you.
By the way, how does this go home?
All right, that was awesome. That was terrific. I did have a thought, and when Eddie made the point that his hairline was receding, the only thing I was filled with was jealousy. So I would die to have that hairline, Eddie, let's be honest. But congratulations to Steve and to Dr. Tom Ray, two very deserving award winners, and I think they could use one more round of applause. Congratulations to both. All right, we are now at the time to kick off our keynote address. We are joined by a very special individual. I mentioned him earlier. His name is Jim Platzer. To help introduce his story, we're actually going to run a video. This video has closed captioning and voice descriptions to make it as accessible as possible to everyone. Go ahead and roll that video, and then we'll...
On Fox and Friends, a title, Blind Man Relearns How to Fly Plane.
Well, have you ever had a dream, but someone told you that you couldn't do it? They told you no? Well, Fox News correspondent Leah Gabriel met one man who was told just that, and he refused to listen.
And she now joins us with that story. Hey, Leah.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Well, Jim Platzer lost his eyesight when he was in his 20s, but he has accomplished some amazing things in his life. In fact, he told me all about it as he flew me around in his plane. Take a look.
Leah rides in the back of a 4-seat plane.
As someone who's been a pilot for more than 15 years, it isn't easy getting in the back seat, but it's especially hard today because my pilot is blind.
Right now, I've got less than 5% of my field of vision left.
Jim Platzer used to be president for a Fortune 500 company, but he was forced into an early retirement due to retinitis pigmentosa. It's a degenerative condition that leads to blindness.
When I was 26, and the diagnosis was devastating.
As a young man, Jim stands proudly by a plane.
But Jim, who had his pilot's license before he went blind, hasn't let a little thing like losing sight stop him from taking to the skies. That's where Joel Pierce, a flight instructor and the general manager at Sweet Aviation, comes in.
You called Joel and you said, hey, you know what? I can't see, but I want to be a pilot again.
Joel.
Is that for real? Is this guy serious? But for the most part, I got his vision of what he was trying to do.
Jim takes Joel's elbow.
The team has become a well-oiled flying machine.
Jim.
In the F-18, you depend on your instruments to get you on the deck of that carrier. I depend on Joel. He's my instrument. He gives me all that verbal feedback. He paints that picture for me of my environment and what I need to do to be successful.
Jim walks onto the tarmac with his guide dog.
So how do they do it?
The dog jumps onto a wing and joins Leah in the back seat. The plane speeds down a runway and lifts into the air.
Here we go. Woo!
The dog puts its chin on Leah's lap.
And now you can go ahead and raise the flap. Flaps up.
So, Joel, is it safe?
Yes. I have a complete set of dual controls.
One of the important things that we had was if I thought I was too disoriented, didn't understand what was happening in the cockpit, I would just say, Joel, your plane. He would take the controls.
So, Jim, tell me about what it feels like to have this airplane in your control right now.
It's an awesome feeling to get back in the cockpit after going through this challenge of visual impairment and figuring out that I am able to do this in working with Joel.
Does that make you the guide pilot?
I'll tell you, there are some similarities between my guide dog Micah and Joel. When I'm up in the air, Joel is actually my Micah.
So how would I do as Jim's guide pilot?
Jim, the airport is about 6 miles off our right wing. Let's make a 90-degree, about a 30-degree bank right turn to final.
Roger.
Okay, not bad. But how would I do flying blind?
Leah takes the controls and closes her eyes.
All right, I'm closing my eyes. I trust you. I gotta tell you, this feels really weird.
40 degrees banking. Look up right quick.
She opens her eyes.
That was a little scary, but I'm gonna give it another shot.
With her eyes closed,
Right and turn.
That's wing level.
Yep, there's wing level closed.
That's wing
the
level.
plane banks as it turns. The plane lowers toward the runway.
If I had not had that experience, I would never understand how tricky it is and how challenging it is for Jim to do what he does. I'm so impressed. I'm really amazed.
So what advice does Jim have for others facing overwhelming challenges?
Think outside the box. Be innovative in your approach. If you can't get there one way, find another way to get there.
Sometimes we think, okay, a blind guy can't fly an airplane. Well, I can.
That's awesome. Awesome. That video was awesome, and it really demonstrates that there really are no limits to what someone who's determined can do, and no limits is a perfect way to describe our keynote presenter, Jim Platzer. He has held numerous positions throughout his 25-year career at Genuine Parts Company, a Fortune 500 company that makes automotive industrial parts. When he retired in 2003 because of his diminished vision, he was the president and general manager of one of their distribution facilities, which generated $55 million in annual revenue. During his presidency, he received the GPC's highest achievement award of Triple Crown for his operation. He's also very ambitious to give back to the community and serving others. He's a member of the Lions Club International and has been the club president, is a Melvin Jones Fellow, and received the Presidential Leadership Award. Jim, along with his wife Janice, founded and was the president of our Fort Wayne, Indiana chapter of the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and together they have raised over $750,000 for the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And as I said earlier, not only is he very active and involved with the Foundation Fighting Blindness, but also the Leader Dogs for the Blind, which is based in Rochester, Michigan, the town I grew up in. He currently is on the board of trustees for the Leader Dogs, and he is renowned for giving motivational keynote addresses like the one he's going to give us here today, and has done so for corporations like Audi, Lincoln, Sweetwater Sound, Nestle, Purina, and many others. Today, and this is, I was very interested to learn this, he's actually a children's book author as well, and he's getting ready to publish a book entitled The Lion-Hearted Puppy, A Guide Dog's Journey, which is really, really cool. And it's written through the eyes of his first leader dog, Maddie. And so that's cool. I'm anxious to learn more about that. He and his wife, Janice, have been married 40 years. They have one son. And before bringing him up, I just want to read one or two testimonials from other folks who've witnessed his keynotes in the past. So this comes from the vice president of InnoSource. And he said, "Your presentation gave the audience the opportunity to learn and consider leadership attributes from another perspective, which was very powerful. You made it very difficult for the next speaker who followed you, who was a famous TV personality from the Shark Tank TV show, who commented how inspired he was by your message, and he really didn't want to follow you on stage. So that's terrific. And then the second testimonial I wanted to share with you is from the senior vice president and chief communications officer from Audi, after a presentation that Jim had made there. And he said, "Jim changed the way we looked at our business. He inspired management, and in turn, he helped us to inspire the change we needed within our culture. For any organization looking to do the same, Jim is a must-see." So I'm personally very anxious to hear your presentation today. Please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Jim Platzer.
Hi, buddy.
Nothing like some good, feel-good music, right? Yeah. Thank you for inviting me today. It's an honor to be with all of you in support of the mission to find treatments, preventions, and cures. Yes, cures for retinal disease. Let me get Micah situated here. Oh boy, good job. Let me start out with a housekeeping detail. Occasionally speakers will ask for a response from an audience, and typically raising your hand would work, right? Well, we both know that that's not going to work out well today. So if I ask you a question, please respond by clapping. Let's make sure we're on the same page with this. Please let me know if you feel blessed by the work of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. We're going to keep that going. Blessed by the visionary leadership of Gordon and Luli Gunn. Blessed by the dedicated staff at Foundation Fighting Blindness. And last but not least, blessed by the dedication of our scientific community, which we just saw. So when I came out here, I said good afternoon. What I should have said was great afternoon. With your help and the applause I just heard, we together are going to make this not a good afternoon, but a great afternoon and a great conference. Please give yourself a round of applause. I want to thank Jason for that introduction. It's a little awkward playing a Fox News segment and then listening to Jason read everything. It always makes me feel awkward about an introduction. Probably a lot of you feel the same way. But it's almost like bragging. I'm great, I did this or I did that. And if you know me well, I'm actually a very modest guy. I'm a humble guy, and I'm not driven by a lot of ego. Now, having said that, you know something's coming. I am proud and with no reservation or restraint whatsoever make the following declaration to you today. I'm in charge. Now you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, didn't he just say he's a modest guy, not driven by a lot of ego? And you're right, that's exactly what I said. That declaration, it could have induced some emotional opposition, right? I'm not going to take orders from this guy. Who does he think he is? Now, I got to tell you, David, Ben, and Jason, they might be thinking right now, no, actually, we're in charge. But no matter what you might think or how you might feel about it, I am in charge. I'm able to say that because I've done some research. I know about humans and what makes us tick, what makes us unique. And I'll refer back to my declaration a little bit later. How many of you have read or heard about the highly acclaimed book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey? That's awesome. Happens to be my favorite book, 30 million plus copies sold, still selling strong, at the top of the list always, and it's facilitated in organizations globally. Dr. Covey states that humans have 4 endowments, characteristics that we are born and blessed with, and the combination of these characteristics and our ability to use them at a very high level, for example, gives us superiority when compared to the animal world. And I apologize to all the guide dogs that are in the room. More importantly, those endowments, they empower us. These characteristics, they're so important. After all, they are key elements to living a happy and successful life. The first endowment Dr. Covey explains is called self-awareness. Now, this first one's a little bit tricky. I'm glad I caught you before cocktail hour tonight. It's our ability to think about our very own thought process. The second endowment is creative imagination. Happens to be my favorite. How else would we land a rover on the surface of the planet Mars? More importantly, for this conference, how would we get that breaking research that we need? And it's our ability to create in our minds beyond our present reality. The third endowment is conscience. And this one is critical to our happiness. It's our ability to choose right from wrong. And that ability is based on a set of principles that we choose to govern our behavior. The fourth endowment, independent will, it's our ability to act free from outside influences. And all four of these endowments, self-awareness, creative imagination, conscience, and independent will, they provide us the ultimate human freedom to decide who we want to be. And what a wonderful gift God has granted to us. I'm going to share my thoughts and my journey with you, but I'm going to do that with humility. Because out of a room of, 500 people, there are 500 journeys taking place here. Mine is unique to me as yours is to you. So up front, I'm here for the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And I ask that you see me just as a person who is traveling life's road like you, making mistakes, learning, struggling, enjoying the victories along the way in search of success and happiness. First, I want to introduce you to my best friend, my partner, my wife, Janice. She's sitting right here. Oh, wait, we're not done with her yet. It's going to be 40 years for us in October, and it happens to be her birthday today, so give her a big round of applause. Do we have any spouses, family members, or friends that are here in support of someone with a retinal disease? So important. And on behalf of all of us, we thank you for attending and having that support. Next, I want you to meet this very handsome guy next to me. I heard there's flower pots over here, and a lot of us are blind anyways, so you can't see him. I'm going to tell you about him. His name is Micah, and he's my second guide dog, and he's about a 7-year-old lab, 75 pounds, and he's a tall, lanky guy. I get a lot of compliments on him. He's a chick magnet. In fact, my leader dog trainer, she told me when I got him that your dog's going to be a chick magnet, and she was absolutely right, but they're all attracted to him. He's such a great dog and a great guy. And I got to tell you, these guys are extremely intelligent. The real chance is getting the owner as smart as the dog, right? Just ask Janice. I'm going to give you a little background about myself. You heard some of it in the introduction, but I think it'll help give some perspective about where I'm coming from. I was born and raised in the Detroit area. My father was an engineer for one of the car companies, and I grew up like most kids. And you and I are going to relate on this at a special level compared to most audiences that I talk to. With one exception, I could not see very well in the dark. Does that ring true with some of you out there? Yeah. It was, for me, it was one of those awkward things to grow up with as a kid. If I was in unfamiliar territory and it started to get dark out, I'd retreat indoors. I didn't want to bump into something, get hurt. And I certainly didn't want other kids to maybe realize that weakness. And so it was awkward. And you move on. You adjust to it, and you move on in your life. I remember getting my driver's license when I turned 16, always an exciting time in the life of a teenager, especially if you're a Motor City teenager. And I remember that first car that I drove. It was a 1970 Plymouth GTX 440 Tri-Power. Now, we got some older folks in here. Back in that muscle car era, a lot of horsepower for a young kid, my brother and I, we would take it out on the expressway in Detroit occasionally. It had a 150-mile-an-hour speedometer, and we'd bury the needle. We never got in any real trouble. I can't imagine today you'd probably go straight to jail. But we had a good time. I went to college. While I was in college, I took flight training, as you might expect. I got my pilot's license when I was 21. And I'm going to tell you a story that I don't really tell a lot of audiences, but this audience is going to appreciate it. You have to do 3 hours worth of night flying in order to get your pilot's license. So it was about that time, and I'd scheduled some time with my flight instructor, Russ, young guy, great guy, and we were going to go out and do some night flying. And I remember showing up at the airport at the FBO there, and I said, Russ, I really don't see very well in the dark. And he was like, that's okay. We'll get out to the airplane. You'll be just fine. Okay, whatever. So we went out and we went flying. Does anybody know what a touch and go is? Yeah, you practice, you come in, land, and then you take off. You don't come to a complete stop. So we went out to a small uncontrolled field north of Detroit, and we did some practice touch and goes. And what you do is you come in and you fly a rectangular pattern around the airport, and you land and put the flaps back up, throw the power in, you take off without stopping. Well, we had done about 3 of those touch and goes, and I'm on final for the next one. And Russ says, he's got this brilliant idea. He says, I want you to turn the landing light off just to see what it's like to land an airplane at night in case the bulb were to burn out while you're flying. Okay. I didn't say anything to Russ. My heart started beating real fast, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not a great idea. So I did that. I turned the landing light off, and if you're familiar with the runway, there's lights on either side of the runway, a lot of them, and I was watching those lights. So as I was losing altitude, I was coming towards the pavement, and I was watching those little lights come up underneath the airplane, and I was trying to figure out when to flare back on the controls to land, and I flared out a little bit early, and we hit kind of hard. Didn't do any damage to the airplane. But if you didn't know it, you can actually bounce an airplane. We did about three bounces until it settled down. I put the flaps up, power back in, took off, and it was funny because Russ really didn't say a whole lot about it. My guess is that he was sitting next to me in the airplane going, yeah, this guy really doesn't see all that well at night. But we had a great time, and I always recommend to young people, try aviation. It was a great experience for me. I learned a lot about myself in the process. I had met my wife, Janice, and started my career, and just a few short years later, I noticed I was having more problems with my vision. And we went to an ophthalmologist, and he sent us off to the Kresge Eye Institute. I'm sure a lot of people in here are familiar with the Kresge Eye Institute. They do great work. For a test. And I remember coming back to the office the next week to that ophthalmologist, and he gave us the diagnosis. He said that I had a retinal degenerative disease called retinitis pigmentosa. Wow. I'd never heard of such a thing. It's a mouthful. I'm always glad when I get it out correctly. This is a true story. Several years ago, one of our local news anchors in town was interviewing me live on the air, and he said I had a retinal degenital disease. I thought I knew everything about the disease up until that point. We got to have fun with it, right? You got to have fun. But I asked that ophthalmologist what probably each and every one of you that are affected asked, and that is, what do we do for it? What's the treatment? What's the cure? And the answer was devastating. This floor is really creaky up here. The answer was devastating. He said, RP is typified by night blindness, loss of peripheral vision, leading to blindness. There is no treatment, there is no cure, and by the way, you may want to think about learning how to read Braille now. How many can relate to that? Yeah. Well, that was a game changer. It kind of turned my world upside down. It's not the kind of news that you want to get. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm an A-type personality. And I want to say that A stands for aggressive, not something else. But I love to work, and I work really hard. I spent 25 years in the automotive aftermarket, so I worked really hard. I didn't give my job 110%. I gave it 200%. Because I didn't want to give my employer any reason to let me go. After all, who might hire a blind person? How would I put a roof over her head, food on the table, and raise a family? So I worked really hard, and I did well. You heard Jason in the introduction. The last position I held, I was president and general manager of a distribution facility for a Fortune 500 company. Sweet job. Did a lot of volume. We had a great customer base, lots of super employees, phone calls, emails, problems to solve, just what an A-type personality likes to do. Up until several years ago when I was forced to retire due to blindness. And I can remember that first day being at home, the silence was deafening. It wasn't like being on vacation, it was permanent. And it wasn't settling well with me. I'd gone from 80 employees down to 1, and I can tell you this, my wife Janice right here, she was not happy about being that one employee. Right, honey? Happy birthday. So, as my vision loss progressed, I went further negative, as some of you probably did. How many of you have heard or seen the movie Forrest Gump? Yeah. It's a great, great movie starring Tom Hanks. And there's a scene in that movie that I say I relate to. And you may relate to it as well. And if you've seen it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the scene where Forrest is on the front porch of the house, and he's putting on his tennis shoes, and he's getting ready to run. We know the adage, right? Run, Forrest, run. Now, Forrest, he does not know why he's running. He's not intelligent enough to know why he's running, but we get it, we understand, we know the backdrop to the movie. But Forrest is running away from that reality of the girl he wanted a relationship with, Jenny, the death of his best friend, Bubba Gump, and the condition of his war mate, Lieutenant Dan. And he's running away from that reality. And I think in the movie, Forrest runs for 2 years. And you hear Tom Hanks in the narrative at the end of that run, and he says, I just stopped running. And I say I relate to that scene because I was running away from that reality that I did not want to face, that beast of blindness, that darkness, talking about fight or flight. I was in full flight, running away from it, and it was exhausting. And I got to that very same point where I said, I just need to stop running. And I knew that something had to change. And I found myself in that position where I needed to accept and adapt. I needed to defeat that darkness and regain some of that independence and mobility that I'd lost, and maybe most importantly, that sense of purpose in my life. We all need that sense of purpose in our lives, don't we? Without it, we're like a ship at sea without a rudder, wandering aimlessly. We're not sure where we're going to end up, and if you've been in that position, you know how uncomfortable that is. Well, there's no need for a spoiler alert here. You saw the Fox News segment. I ended up back in the cockpit of an airplane, doing something that I love to do. So how did I recover from being a ship at sea without a rudder, lost without purpose, to being back in the cockpit? I did what a lot of you may have done. Number one, I had to stop the negative thought process. I had to commit to self-improvement in a big way. And I did what you might expect. I improved my cane skills to gain mobility and become more independent. And I'll admit, my cane skills, just to be blunt, they sucked. Learning orientation and mobility was very difficult for me. I'd like to blame it on some type of midlife learning impairment or disorder, but I don't think that would be fair because I've seen so many of you do it much better than what I did. Now, I don't want this to be about dog versus cane, okay? But I went and got my first guide dog. And I've always loved dogs from day one. And this happened to work out really, really well for me. So over a period of time, I started doing more things, getting back out into the world, socializing. I learned the bus routes so that I could travel independently, as an example, to get to our local YMCA. While at the Y, I took up running, and I ran on their track for a couple of years. I would do my running when the track wasn't very busy. I actually bought a horse riding crop, which was probably a couple feet long, and I'd hold it in my hand and I'd run that track and I'd glide that horse riding crop along the edge of the wall so I wouldn't bump into it. And since there weren't very many people and I had enough vision at that time, I could hopefully avoid hitting them if I had to. As I lost more vision, eventually I transitioned to the treadmill, another change. But that worked out just great for me. I enjoyed the treadmill. I'd put on Pharrell Williams Happy and I'd run like crazy. It was great. The YMCA turned out to be a great resource for me, both for exercise and socialization. I was asked to join the board there and I've served for the past 12 years. With 25,000 members, it's a busy place with plenty of opportunity to serve the community, and at the same time, it provided purpose for me in my life. I was also invited to join the board at Leader Dogs for the Blind. Extremely interesting work. I think these guys are like miracles on four legs, and again, it provided a wonderful opportunity to serve and give back to that organization. As I'm sure many of you have done, I started to do some public speaking. How many of you started doing public speaking to groups when you got your diagnosis? Yeah. I was reluctant at first because in my talks I did not want to be defined as a blind person. That reluctance, it was easily overcome by choosing the purpose and the topics that I would talk about. I'll give you an example. Lions Clubs, as you know, they support a lot of vision-related projects, and I was a recipient of their work, their generosity. And I also discovered that they received little feedback from their recipients for their efforts. So I found it extremely important and relevant to talk to Lions. And not to make it about me being blind, but to make it about them. That was the important distinction. About them and the amazing impact that they have on people. That type of speaking engagement was powerful in two ways. One, I was able to thank them, and that personally made me feel good to do that. But two, and most importantly, I found that the feedback I was able to provide, and it served as an incredible resource of encouragement for Lions to continue their work. And I let them know how inspired I was by the selfless volunteer work that they did. Now, you might say I turned the table upside down in my audience by focusing on them. So I accepted speaking engagements based on the value that I could bring to the organization. So whether it was the Lions, the YMCA, Leader Dogs for the Blind, go ahead and give some applause. Foundation Fighting Blindness. Thank you. My speaking opportunities, they had to provide meaningful purpose. And I met so many incredibly wonderful, generous people who gave selflessly for others. And that changed me. I'm talking about deep internal change. It changed me to the core of my being. God had given me the opportunity to see things, and it changed my perspective so that I could see and experience a deeper meaning in life. Some might think, Jim, didn't you realize that the world was full of big-hearted, selfless people? Well, call me a slow learner if you like, but no, not to the extent that I was now experiencing, and it truly touched my heart. I didn't particularly like public speaking at first, but God evidently has a great sense of humor and a greater purpose for our lives, right? Because now I was continually receiving requests, and I refer back to Dr. Covey's human endowment of conscience, choosing right from wrong. Turning down speaking opportunities that had value would be wrong. Morally, ethically, I couldn't say no. And now I was being approached by corporations for doing their speaking engagements. In the business world, what they were looking for was an SME, a subject matter expert. And I've worked with many high-end luxury brands. Some had essentially the same goals. They needed to improve their customer service, and it made perfect sense. Having a blind, visually impaired person provide insight on how to maximize that customer experience, it was actually a genius concept. A great example is that we tend to have advanced levels of sensory perception skills. Case in point, listening. It's something so basic yet so critical to the customer experience. And I focus on listening a lot in my talks with corporate America. Our sensory perception provides useful insight in so many ways. Ambient noise, showroom layout, even our sense of smell. And I was also asked to be an SME for a test track drive comparison between the Acura TLX and the Lincoln MKZ. So go figure, you got a blind guy on a test track doing a ride comparison for these higher end cars. So you never know what life's going to throw at you. I had a blast doing it. I developed my real chops for corporate speaking with Audi. And it wasn't just one engagement, it was a nationwide tour, and there were 7 people on the tour. Scott Keogh, president of Audi of America, Jerry Ward, senior vice president, chief communications officer, and 3 of the other 3 major members of their team. And I was one of 2 best speakers. So now God's sense of humor was at its very finest, because we would appear at large venues in front of all 15,000 members of the Audi team. This was a full production show, 2 semis of equipment, a fleet of black Audi A8s at our disposal. Anybody know what an Audi A8 is? That'll spoil you in a hurry. You go back home after that and you're going, oh my God, what happened? So we had a large production crew, and the tour was designed from the top down to change the culture within Audi. It wasn't just customer experience, it was changing the culture within Audi itself. Some people ask, well, what was the most memorable moment on the tour? And I got to tell you, it was in the green room at the Lincoln Center in New York City. And I was getting mic'd up just prior to going out on stage, and I refer to that as my depends moment. Interestingly enough, Audi gave me a driving experience. I hadn't driven in a car in years, and they gave me the opportunity to drive a car. We went to a closed course racetrack in Waterford Hills, Michigan, just north of Detroit, and they paired me up with a pro driver named Danny. He was a great guy. And Danny had a plan to make this venture work and be successful. He put my hands at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position on the wheel, and he gave instructions verbal instructions to my right hand. As an example, he would say, left 10 o'clock, right 2 o'clock, and so on. And we took some test laps in an Audi S7 to practice that skill set, and it worked out really well. Next, we exited the track, and Danny said, well, we're going to switch cars. And he put me in the driver's seat of an Audi R8. Ooh. I'll explain the Audi R8 for those that aren't familiar with the R8. One word, supercar. 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, top speed of around 200. And Danny and I went out on the course for a little fun in a $175,000 supercar, and I was like a kid in a candy shop. So how did I do? As you might expect, I handled the corners like a guy that just drank 2 six-packs followed by shots of tequila. But I didn't care, I was having a blast. When we got to the straightaways, Danny would say, go for it, and I did. It was like being launched out of a slingshot, and I couldn't get the smile off my face for the rest of the day. The second thrill ride came when Danny and we switched seats and we put on helmets, and he showed me why they call him a professional driver. He also defined why they call the Audi R8 a supercar. Danny proceeded to take me on an absolutely punishing ride in the R8. The car turned into an absolute beast, and I'm sure within a few more laps, I would have reacquainted myself with breakfast. I was already starting to get nauseous. So, kind of going through that experience, it was an awesome experience, and I had a blast, and it was fun working with Audi. But I got to tell you, the big takeaway was that it started some thought process for me. I was successful at driving a car with limited vision, using verbal feedback from a professional driver. So would it be possible to create a similar process and be successful at flying a plane? I knew that flying would be exponentially more difficult. After all, now we're talking about a three-dimensional experience and adding a wind component just to complicate the matter. And I counseled with a very good friend of mine, Major Al. And Major Al happens to be a former fighter pilot, flew F-4s, F-16s, and he's a captain for American Airlines. And we discussed all the details and challenges and obstacles that I might face in doing this, and concluded that it might be possible. Now, you already know that it was extremely successful. I was able to taxi, take off, and land the airplane, and that was awesome. But we got about 2 million views on the video that was put out. So it was a personal victory for me, but the real value was that other people viewed it. My goal wasn't just to fly an airplane. My goal was for others to view the video, gain new perspective about their challenges in life that they faced in their lives. It was about casting away those perceived limitations that sometimes we have in our lives, right? It's about being innovative in life and business. It's about busting barriers. If you can't get there one way, find another solution that gets you to your goals. Never think that you can't do that. It's also about trust, teamwork, and communication, which is so vital. To be successful, Joel and I, we had to build a relationship where we had total faith and trust in each other, and it was based on a very high level of trust, teamwork, and I got to tell you, extremely clear communication. Makes me think about the challenges that Gordon faced when the foundation was at its infancy, what he was up against. It had to be daunting. Creating the foundational structure that could endure the trials and tribulations over time. And I'm eternally grateful for what the foundation has done. They raised the bar for the development of treatments, preventions, and cures for these diseases that affect so many of us. And I'm fortunate to have had many positive mentors in my life. Of course, my wife and my son, people I've known on a personal level. Bill and Colleen Carty, are you in here? They're there. They're like, Jim, don't call me out on this. Well, we had dinner with Bill and Colleen last night. We're friends with them, and I can tell you, I've worked with Bill in some committees, and Bill, you've always been a great mentor to me. You're shorter than I am, but I look up to you like a giant, I can tell you. When Bill walks into a room, you know that he's the smartest guy in the room. And Colleen, I love you to death. Yeah. I'll say a little bit more about that. Bill and Colleen actually introduced us to the Foundation Fighting Blindness. Janice and I had gone to a wedding. I won't make a long story out of it, but we didn't know about it, and we ended up at a wedding, and we're sitting at a table with Bill and Colleen, and he said, do you know about the Foundation Fighting Blindness? And Janice and I were like, no, we had no idea. I've been diagnosed for years, but had no idea about the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And from that point, we went home, and Janice and I, we looked, and there was no chapter. In fact, there was no chapter in Indiana. And we went home, and I ended up calling somebody at FFB in the Chicago office. Mary Ann Sableski, where are you? Now, Mary Ann got a lot of attention last night, and I don't know if you were all there, but Mary Ann took the call, and admittedly, Fort Wayne's a small target for FFB, and she made it work. She came out, we started the chapter, and we did our first vision walk. In little old Fort Wayne, I think that first vision walk, Mary Ann, what did we raise, like $75,000, $85,000? Yeah. So I want to thank you, Mary Ann, for having the courage to take on little Fort Wayne. We're the little engine that could. We keep cranking it out, and it's because of you and your efforts. And I don't know if everybody knows this. Mary Ann is retiring. Please give her a huge round of applause for her work. And, you know, I also look at people like Gordon, who I've eaten dinner with Gordon. We don't know each other all that well, but I've certainly viewed your work and what you have done from a distance, and you are a tremendous mentor to all of us in this room. When I look for those people, those mentors in my life, whether it's personal or from a distance, I look for those people who encapsulate those four human endowments: self-awareness, creative imagination, conscience, free will, and they use them at their highest capacity or highest level. I'm able to gather energy and purpose and direction from the shadows that these mentors cast, and I appreciate that. A lot of times during my talks, I'll refer to my favorite picture of my first leader dog, Maddie. Is she up there on the screen? Okay. As soon as I hear the awe, I know the picture's up on the screen. Maddie was so special, a sweet, petite little yellow lab that I fell in love with the moment that I met her. And let me tell you about, I'm going to paint the picture for those that can't see the picture. Maddie is in the forefront of that picture, and she's looking at you, and little yellow lab, and her head is cocked about as far as you can cock a head without doing damage. Such a cute picture, almost like she's asking you something or trying to understand something. But it's a great, great picture of her. And she is sitting on a rock path, I would say, what do you guys think, maybe 8 foot wide? And it takes a slow winding curve. This was taken in upstate New York in farm country. And it takes a slight rolling turn, elevates, what, about 12 feet, you think? And ends up in front of 2 large barn doors. And it's just an absolutely beautiful picture. Below the picture is the date she was born and the date that I had to put her down. Those 2 dates are significant. But they're really just markers or metrics in time. What's truly significant is that dash between those 2 dates. That's where we are right now. That's where life occurs. And I'll always be grateful to Maddie. She was one of those catalysts that helped me to move forward. And I think it's incumbent on us that we live our dash to our fullest potential, always moving forward. And maybe most importantly, it's incumbent that we help others along the way so that they can, yes. Thank you for recognizing the importance of that. But it is critical so that they can live their dash to their greatest potential. And when I talk to corporate America, I'll always say that I think this is a key leadership quality. When I came out here, I made a declaration. I said, I'm in charge. I didn't say what I'm in charge of. I'm in charge of myself. I'm in charge because I've been empowered by those 4 endowments. I determine my success, my happiness. I think the Foundation Fighting Blindness has given us the opportunity to participate in the fight against blindness, and I think that opportunity is important. It gives us purpose. It puts us in charge of that fight, and I want all of us to be in charge. Live your life to exceed expectations, innovating and defining your own destiny, whatever that might be. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be with all of you today. I wish you nothing but success and happiness in your lives. May God bless each and every one of you. And please, let's give it up for the Foundation Fighting Blindness. Yeah. What? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So remember that little bit I said about, 45 minutes ago about the guy from Shark Tank having to follow Jim? Yeah, I know what he's talking about. That was exceptional. That was exceptional. As I think everyone knows, we've said it a couple times, we're streaming this live. My wife is watching this right now, and she said she's just sitting at home crying. And she's like, I don't know why. It was just so inspirational. So that was awesome. That was awesome. So thank you all. This concludes our opening session, our keynote session. I want to reiterate our congratulations for our award winners, Dr. Tom Ray, Dr. Steve Alper. So congratulations to them. And just as we conclude, we do just a couple of housekeeping activities. The exhibit hall is now open right after this session. So please go check out all the cool technologies, products, and services that our great sponsors have offered. We also have a technology showcase and a demonstration from SmartCane that'll be starting probably in about 5-10 minutes. We push it back a little bit, so call it 10 minutes in the exhibit hall. Later this afternoon, we have 2 science sessions that are back here in the boardroom. Michelle, are we pushing those back, or are we going to still keep those in at 3:10? 3:10. So 3:10 back here in this session. We've got 1 session on genetics and genetic testing. And then at 4:20, there is the session on clinical trials. So the last thing I'll say is just remember to use the hashtag VISIONS2018 on Twitter and Facebook. And thank you very much. Have a great rest of the meeting.